quantumlaserpointers.com.
Quantum Laser Pointers brings you the infamous double-slit experiment right in the palm of your hand. In 1801, English physicist Thomas Young performed this experiment to determine if light was a particle or a wave. A laser shines a coherent beam of light through a film disc containing two parallel slits. Light striking the wall behind the slits produces a classic interference pattern. This surprising result means light passes through the parallel slits not as particles, but as waves.
Visit our website or subscribe to our YouTube channel now. Be among the first to see our new line of double-slit lasers, quantumlaserpointers.com.
Good evening, this is Terry Britton, and this is week number 2 of the Abundance Project series. And tonight we are going to cover the topic of the holographic universe. And you may say, the holographic universe, oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you. I met a physician who was a metaphysician, and he gave me a metaphysical, and he said, you know, even in your condition, this is too far out. So, what can I say? It's not going to get any worse than that joke, so you may as well stick around and listen. The holographic universe. Well, for starters, let me give credit where credit is due. This idea was put forth by a fellow named Ishtok Bentov, and he wrote this wonderful book called Stalking the Wild Pendulum many, many years ago. And I've been a big fan of this book. I even gave a couple talks on it back in the 80s. And that's what the cover looks like. And actually, they have a new version of the cover now. But I'll have links in the show notes to find this book at various locations. And this is like an original copy from the 80s that I've still got. And he also wrote a nice book called Cosmic Book, which gets into some of the deeper details of ideas that he puts forward in there. This is what he looked like. So, as you can see, this book's all messed up. But he was a really great fellow who definitely died way too young, way prematurely in a terrible plane crash. But nonetheless, his ideas live on and really he has a lot of great ideas in these books. But the idea that he introduced me to, that I've always found kind of as a fascinating model to show people, is his idea of the holographic universe, and I'll get into that in just a second. So, but this is being the Abundance Project. I want you to start out thinking, as long as we're on the subject of abundance, just how big the universe is, okay? I mean, it is huge, huge. Here we are in this, and we didn't even know how huge until pretty recently, in fact. Here, we've got this galaxy that we think is so huge we can't even get from one end to the other at our current technology with the speed of light limitation. And it's got millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of stars in it. Well, lo and behold, now we know and understand that there are millions and millions, if not billions, of galaxies themselves, each with their own millions and millions and millions of stars. So, I mean, we're talking billions of galaxies. That's how big the universe is, that it can contain billions of galaxies. That's pretty darn huge. I mean, that is way huge, okay? And this is all coming down to this little teeny planet Earth, that we're all sitting here and we're part of this amazing hugeness, okay? And people who contemplate the stars and the universe and the size of the universe and everything can start to feel kind of small and maybe even a little insignificant. You know, you're going, oh my gosh, you know, it's a huge universe and this planet Earth teeming with life and everything, but golly, you know, it's just this little teeny speck in the middle of all of this kind of stuff. Well, that's the point of tonight, is that this is not just a little teeny speck in the middle of a whole lot of stuff. And that's what we're going to get into. Ishtok Bentov, one of his things that he proposed was this idea of the holographic universe. And the idea of the universe operating sort of like a hologram operates. Now, let me explain what that means. A hologram is a 3D photographic technique. It uses lasers in conjunction, two lasers, one that stays solid and the other that takes the actual scan of the item. And the two lasers are pulsing, and they wind up creating phase interference patterns as a result of, the reflection being a bit later than the first laser that's staying static. And it's viewed through a special means. So when you look at it, it's just a glass plate, but it seems like it's three-dimensional. When you move around, it makes for a three-dimensional effect. And it's pretty darn amazing. I mean, Salvador Dali has dabbled in it as part of his artworks. I had a friend in New York City who was one of the founders of the Holographic Museum, and was instrumental in creating printable holograms back in the early days, in the 80s and 70s. And but holograms that are on a glass plate are kind of amazing, because if you drop one of these glass plate holograms, and it's a big thing, glass, and you got this complete three-dimensional image, and you move around and it's 3D. If you drop it and break it into 100 pieces, or let's even say we're just break it into 50 pieces, nonetheless, when you pick up a piece, each piece miraculously contains the entire image. It doesn't contain just a portion of the image like you would if you had painted on the piece of glass and dropped it. You would just have a fragment that showed one part of the image, of that piece of paint, that section that was painted. But with a hologram, when you drop it, you hold up the piece and the entirety of the image shows up in that piece. Now, it's a little bit fuzzier than it was in the larger version, because the resolution is less now. What the miracle of it is that the whole thing is expressed even in the smaller pieces. So, that Dezhdag Bentov, in using it as a model for the universe, implies an interconnectivity kind of a concept. That if you look at the universe as if it were similar to the hologram, to this glass plate hologram, then that would mean every single small portion, every rock, every atom, every living room, everything that you look at has got an expression of the entire whole of the universe expressed in itself. Okay, now that's a pretty big idea right there. The interconnectivity of all things, where the idea becomes the universe, rather than being us being a small part of the universe. Instead, turn that upside down and think of it as every small part being the universe expressing itself into a microcosm. Okay? Now, when you start thinking about all the different energy fields, how everything is energy fields, everything, all atoms, the photons we see of these ancient stars that are millions of years old, because we're seeing light that is so old and ancient finally getting to us. So we're always looking back into history and back at light that's coming from way back. At least that's what we suppose now. But nonetheless, all of these different fields of energy that all become things, you can conceive of it being, in a way, because of the interconnectivity of everything, the universe expressing itself into that microcosm, and that even yourself being that kind of a thing. And this makes for a curious thing, because we often talk about find your center, find that center inside of yourself and meditate on it and focus on it. Well, believe it or not, that's the whole point. That all points in the universe are in the center. Everywhere at the same time. The center is everywhere. Okay? So when you look at it that way, with the universe expressing itself into the microcosm, then the center becomes everywhere at the same time. So everywhere you look, there's a center. And there's a concept for you. That stretches my brain. Now, when you look for that spot inside yourself, or even inside anything else, and look for that center that is everywhere at once, mind you, you're getting a glimpse at the entire universe as it's being expressed into that one single point. Okay? Now that's a lot of universe. That's a lot of universe being expressed into a single point. And yes, you can't say that the universe of the stars that you're looking at right now is necessarily some kind of magic energy that's expressing itself into this single point. But the thing is that all of this has interconnectivity and in a kind of a history, a shared history, in terms of the cause and effect of all the different energies that have taken place since, as they say, since beginningless time, the Buddhists like to say. And so taken in this way, the whole universe is within your reach to grasp as an interconnected whole. Okay? It's within your reach to actually grasp it as an interconnected whole. You can contemplate your own center, or you can contemplate anything you're looking at, and just think about it, that's the center of the universe. It's being expressed, and the universe being expressed into that spot. Here's the whole universe right there for you to touch. And so you have this abundance of connections, because everywhere you look is a center of the universe. Everywhere you look is the whole universe being expressed. Everywhere you look is an interconnectivity, a connection point to everything that's in this entire huge, gigantic, massive, gargantuan whole. Okay? Now, those who seek to find the whole in this argument, I implore you to seek the whole, W-H-O-L-E, in it instead. All right? So that's my whole thing for the Abundance Show tonight. Now, next week, we're going to take this into a point where, now that I've given you kind of a thought experiment and the introduction to the idea of kind of using your mind to conceive of things in a mind-stretching kind of a way, where you get into a little bit stretching outside of yourself, realizing your connection to a larger and larger whole. Well, next week we're going to be discussing working premises and the ideas of how just thinking something as if it were so, using something as a working premise as if it were so, still maybe taken with a grain of salt, but for the time being, working with it as if it is so. And we're going to discuss the kind of results that can come from such thinking and such a mindset. Okay? Because it's just another abundance mindset, just like this whole argument is tonight. All right, well, thanks a lot for hanging out with me tonight, and I'll see you next week. Good night now.
Double slit lasers, quantumlaserpointers.com.
Good evening. This is Terry Britton, and this is week number 2 of the Abundance Project series. And tonight we are going to cover the topic of the holographic universe. And you may say, the holographic universe, oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you. I met a physician who was a metaphysician, and he gave me a metaphysical, and he said, you know, even in your condition.
quantumlaserpointers.com.
Quantum Laser Pointers brings you the infamous double-slit experiment right in the palm of your hand. In 1801, English physicist Thomas Young performed this experiment to determine if light was a particle or a wave. A laser shines a coherent beam of light through a film disc containing 2 parallel slits. Light striking the wall behind the slits produces a classic interference pattern. This surprising result means light passes through the parallel slits not as particles, but as waves.
Visit our website or subscribe to our YouTube channel now. Be among the first to see our new line of...
This is too far out. So, what can I say? It's not going to get any worse than that joke, so you may as well stick around and listen. The holographic universe. Well, For starters, let me give credit where credit is due. This idea was put forth by a fellow named Ishtok Bentov, and he wrote this wonderful book called Stalking the Wild Pendulum many, many years ago. And I've been a big fan of this book. I even gave a couple talks on it back in the 80s. And that's what the cover looks like. And actually, they have a new version of the cover now. But I'll have links in the show notes to find this book at various locations. And this is like an original copy from the 80s that I've still got. And he also wrote a nice book called Cosmic Book, which gets into some of the deeper details of ideas that he puts forward